Favorable views of the Democratic Party brand are at a record low, just 29%. That's compared to 36% for Republicans.
I'm making this video because I have a real invested interest in getting you to cut ties with your abusive ex. In this equation, that abusive ex is the Democratic Party of the United States political system. Now, I can hear plenty of people wincing and cringing and possibly just being like, nah, I'm out. But please, just hear me out. I genuinely want to see if I can give you another perspective that you may have not considered previously.
Is it time for new leadership in the Senate?
Next question.
Mr. Leader.
So let's read the room. The world is obviously going to hell. Our elected political leaders are no good plutocrats who are only invested into holding on to that power. On one side of the duopoly, you have the Republicans, whose invested interest is to make everything worse to fatten their own wallets. While the Democratic Party, well, what do the Democratic Party actually do anyway? I mean, realistically speaking, because they present themselves as the opposition party to the Republican Party, meaning they are the party that is supposed to stop bad things from happening. That is a dynamic that is, in and of itself, a hostage situation, because we're relying on the Democrats to do something. Well, why don't we take a look at what the Democratic Party, and specifically media pundits that belong to the liberal establishment, have been saying in favor of winning the next election, if there even is one. We're going to be watching a bunch of clips today, mostly from those Democrats. And the first clip we're going to be watching is from Senator Alyssa Slotkin giving a reaction to Donald Trump's State of the Union earlier this year.
And that scene in the Oval Office wasn't just a bad episode of reality TV. It summed up Trump's whole approach to the world. As a Cold War kid, I'm thankful it was Reagan and not Trump in office in the 1980s. Trump would have lost us the Cold War.
This is the first clue that we have that the Democrats are completely out of touch with their voter base. They're trying to win the Republican voters. Let's put it this way. Republican voters are one of two people. One, they are misled into believing into all of these conspiracy theories that are substitute for their critical analysis of real systemic issues that would actually affect them directly. These are people whom she is trying to appeal to. And on paper, that doesn't sound too bad, except for the fact that there are already thousands, if not millions of people, decreasing mind you, who are already on her side, who are already willing to vote for her so she can fucking do something about this hellish system that we live under. And of course, the other part that make up the Republicans is just your typical goddamn white supremacist motherfucker who is probably going to be shooting up your school tomorrow. But name-dropping Ronald Reagan in such a positive tone is certainly a choice. Three things come to mind when I think of Ronald Reagan: how he delayed responding to the AIDS epidemic, signing in the California Mulford Act, which is definitive proof that the Republican Party is the ones responsible for gun control in the United States, and of course, trickle-down economics, the biggest scam in American history. Now, of course, Ronald Reagan was much better at de-escalating than, say, even Joe Biden, especially on the issue of Israel. And that's a true story. I strongly recommend you look that up. But, on the other hand, why are you giving credit to the Republican Party who are currently screwing over the country right now? And that's because, simply, she's in bed with the Republican Party. Let's take a look at another clip.
We came in with a clip of Stephen Colbert telling Democrats, do something. We've had other people on this show, Democrats being critical, saying that you and Hakeem Jeffries and other Democratic leaders on the Hill aren't doing enough. First of all, respond to those criticisms from other Democrats. And also let us know what is your plan? What can you do being in the minority?
Well, let me tell you our plan. which is a very good plan. The plan is to organize. The most important thing you can do is to protest, is organizing. It's not easy, but the American people are rising to the cause. So I had a call set up with our major activists in New York State, lots of them. I thought about 500 people would get on the call, 3,000 did. And here's what we decided to do. On the issues that so affect Americans, the cuts to Medicaid, Social Security, the tariffs, we're going to focus on the 6 Republican Congress members in New York State. As you know, the margin is so small in the House that only 2 would change, two people changing their vote would help us win some of those fights. We're getting other senators to go after Republican senators in their own states. The best way to do this is organize. Because their actual program is so unpopular and so bad for the American people, I believe organizing has a very good chance of succeeding. That's the answer that I have. That's the answer Hakeem is doing in the House. And it is the best way to protest the horrible things that Trump is doing.
This sentiment about protesting the Trump administration rings hollow for some reason. I can't put my finger on it.
He's selling out the people of D.C. and the people of this country. He's selling out working people, young people. He's not standing up.
We are here in front of Chuck Schumer's office to send a clear message that young people want him to stand up. Step up or step aside. Step up. Generation is way on you.
I'm here for all of the students, all the teachers in the schools that I was with who are going to get defunded by the things that are going on. Chuck Schumer needs to stand.
Think about Mahmoud Khalil and all of the other people who have been either deported or imprisoned for exercising their First Amendment right, not just under the Trump administration, but also the Biden administration, and of course, the previous Trump administration, Obama, and so forth. Can you remember a time where protesters did not get arrested for exercising their First Amendment right? No, and that is because, first of all, the Democratic Party does not ensure that our First Amendment right is protected, but most importantly, they don't care. Now, there is a specific reason as to why those students were protesting.
Chuck Schumer was scheduled to do a book tour in a number of cities on a book that he has authored on anti-Semitism. He has just canceled that book tour, we are learning, because of protests that were scheduled from activist groups who wanted to go after his decision to agree and allow the government funding bill to go forward to avoid a government shutdown. They were furious at his decision to do that.
It's really interesting that a Democratic leader instructed his constituents and voters to organize and to protest, but when they did that from a grassroots level, like he said, well, not like that. And it's so interesting that Chuck Schumer is concerned for anti-Semitism in the United States, which I'm not going to deny is a real thing that absolutely does exist in the United States. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Seems to only appear when Israel is being scrutinized, or when his decision to go along with Donald Trump's funding of Israel, more specifically here, is being opposed by his own constituents.
We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel.
Meanwhile, congratulations to Chuck Schumer for doing the right thing. Took quote-unquote guts and courage. The big tax cuts, LA fire fix, debt ceiling bill, and so much more is coming. We should all work together on that very dangerous situation. A non-pass would be a country destroyer. Approval will lead us to new heights. Again, really good and smart move on Senator Schumer. This could lead to something big for the USA. A whole new direction and beginning. Think about it. This is him capitulating to Donald Trump. Not even like to all Republicans, but to Donald Trump specifically, because Donald Trump has the power.
In one notable moment, I'm told that Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado, who has not been shy about his frustration with his party leadership in the past, erupted during one of those meetings. Two sources familiar with the moment tell CNN that Senator Bennet accused the Senate Democratic leadership, his leadership, of having, quote, no strategy, no plan, and no message. on this spending bill.
In addition, Donald Trump is exercising power that Joe Biden truthfully wouldn't. Like, Joe Biden himself, although a Catholic, was also a Zionist since he was a child. And being a Catholic Zionist Democrat, we know that his relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, although very enthusiastic about the Zionist project, Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't really like Joe Biden. But Benjamin Netanyahu loves Donald Trump. And that's because Democrats are willing to capitulate to these abusive and authoritarian leaders, while the authoritarian leaders are the ones being abusive and tyrannical.
Democrats in the House really upset about Schumer's move, the progressive base, also a Democratic base. What do you think it says about the Democratic Party?
I'm terrified to know that they're angry or frustrated. Well, yelling on social media isn't leadership. Okay, I'll be the Democrat that's not going to pander, and I'm going to tell you the truth. And if you think shutting the government is smart, then I thought you're not supposed to get in a war when there's no exit plan. You know, guess what? They're going to realize that the exit ramp is owned by the GOP.
Think of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, respectively, as mom and dad in an abusive nuclear family, where mom in the 50s would get physically and domestically abused by dad, but every time that ended, mom would come to the kids and say, listen, just leave dad alone. He's in his studies. He's had a lot to drink tonight. Just let him be. While she's like bleeding in the face. And then you, the child, you know, the voter in this case, are like, hey, maybe we should do something about it. No. You always listen to your father. No buts. Always listen to your father.
Senator Schumer certainly can lead this caucus.
Is he the best person?
He can lead this caucus, but we need to have a conversation inside the caucus about whether we are willing to stand up to Republicans.
Get to your room right now and think about what you did. And when Dad gets home, you know what he says? You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl, and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now.
I still support Senator Schumer as leader, but I think the only way that we are going to be effective as a caucus is if we change our tactics, and we have to have a conversation inside our caucus to make sure that we are going to do that.
That is what this dynamic is like. So anytime the system becomes worse, it's because of the Republicans. But anytime no fixes are done to make the system better, or at least work for the people more accurately here, it's because of the Democrats. Oh, but I hear you say, what about Bernie Sanders? He's on his Stop Oligarchy tour. He's gonna get the means of production and gulag Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and I've been playing Heart of Iron 4 way too much. Do you think he has a chance to stop all this bullshit from happening, Skylar? No. The only thing that I can truly credit Bernie Sanders for doing is shifting the Overton window of the average American consciousness a little bit to the left when it was needed. And it's still needed, and I at least appreciate that he's using his platform to address some of the key systemic issues, not just with the capitalist system, but more specifically even being critical of the Democratic Party. So I'll give him credit where it's due. The Democratic Party needs a major transformation. It can no longer be a top-down, billionaire-funded, consultant-driven party. It must be a multi-generational, multi-racial, working-class party. In a time of growing oligarchy and authoritarianism, that's the only path to victory. However, no calls for Chuck Schumer to resign from his position. And Chuck Schumer is the most vocally powerful person in the whole caucus. And he's using his power to fund an ongoing genocide that Donald Trump is taking the lead on, by the way. And before anybody says, well, they were trying to stop the government from being shut down by the Republicans, remember when they did that during the Obama administration? And on top of that, what's the difference between the shutdown of the government versus what the government is currently doing? It's gutting all of the fundamental resources and all of the departments that actually help the working people. I mean, for fuck's sake, Donald Trump just destroyed the EPA and the Department of Education, among many other things. So functionally, Donald Trump and Elon Musk and all those other fucking cracker-ass fucking whack jobs are gonna get their way. But okay, let's back up a second. At least we're identifying the oligarchy here. So, does Bernie Sanders have any radical takes here that would really differentiate himself from the rest of his party? Let's take a listen to one clip on his stance on immigration.
Is there anything that you think Trump has done right?
Yeah, I mean, I think cracking down on fentanyl, making sure our borders are stronger. Look, nobody thinks that illegal immigration is appropriate. Now, I happen to think we need comprehensive immigration reform, but I don't think that it's appropriate for people to be coming across the border illegally. So we've got to work now on comprehensive immigration reform. The idea that Trump has, I don't know what his latest numbers are, he wants to deport 20 million people who are in this country who are undocumented. Well, you do that, you destroy the entire country, because I got news for you. Trump's billionaire friends are not going to pick the crops in California that feed us. They're not going to work in meat packing houses. That's what undocumented people are doing. So we need a variety of programs, guest worker programs, but mostly comprehensive immigration reform.
On a surface level, that sounds pretty good, that there's going to be reforms to get migrants to be able to become a legal citizen much easier. However, we have to remember the cycle in which the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, respectively, function under. The Democratic Party has absolutely no reason whatsoever to divest from Israel or to divest into anything that the Republicans are doing. If anything, the Republicans are pretty much doing everything that benefits the Democratic Party. And keep in mind, when I say the Democratic Party are benefiting, I'm not talking about you, the liberal who voted for the Democratic Party and got screwed over for the millionth time in a row. I'm saying that the Republicans and the Democrats are screwing you over specifically. Like, think about Mahmoud Khalil for a second, who organized the Columbia University pro-Palestine protests in opposition to Columbia's investment to Israel, not to mention there's a sister campus in Tel Aviv right now. So a legal citizen, a permanent resident with a green card, has gotten deported thousands of miles away from where he was living with a 8-month-old pregnant wife. So the fundamental problem with Bernie Sanders' take here is not even that he's calling for reform in a time when the Democrats are routinely capitulating to the Republican Party, as after all, both parties are in bed with AIPAC, which, for those who don't know, is a pro-Israel American super PAC, specifically designed to buy out politicians and to make sure that those politicians stay in line with the Zionist project. But there's another issue, and that is the whole concept of a border is in and of itself outdated. I did a video on border abolition and why we should abolish ICE in my channel earlier this year, so go check that out if you haven't already. But fentanyl is a problem within the borders of the United States and outside the borders of the United States. And the problem at its root is not from outside of the borders of the United States. It's a global problem. Drugs, in general, are produced worldwide. I mean, the CIA, for example, was importing heroin from Afghanistan during the Afghan-Soviet War in the 1980s. So, if anything, Bernie Sanders, as well-intended as he is only one person who is still capable of falling for the same old racist tricks that Republicans routinely parrot over and over again to get you to buy into their anti-immigrant and xenophobic distractions from getting you to criticize the state capitalist system. That's why I'm advocating for abolition, not reform, because your politicians will listen to you if you're loud and you're organized and you're united. When you demonstrate mutual aid and direct action in your community, you're showing that you, the people, have more power than those plutocrats who do not give a single damn about you. Remember, there's more of us than them, and you're not alone. If you're listening, solidarity forever. Until next time.